Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City of Madeira Beach Board of Commissioners Workshop Meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 24th, and the time is 2 p.m. Would the City Clerk please call the roll?
Here.
Here. Here. First topic, presentation and update on City Hall construction.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if it pleases the commission, if we can jockey around a little bit, we've got some people in the audience that have schedules to keep. Items J, K, and L were presented to the City Plan Commission last night. They were unanimously approved by them. There are some edits to one of them that you now have on your dais, and there's even a further edit that we have to walk you through. But Dave Healy is here, as well as Al Carrier, to do a quick 5-10 minute presentation on these ordinances so that you're educated on them. The Plan Commission took about an hour and a half with them last night and unanimously approved them. This may be a little bit of deja vu. These are some of those ordinances that we shelved when we were just strictly concentrating on getting the Marriott Hotel deal done. And so now this is just playing a little bit of catch-up. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Dave Healy and Al Carrier. They'll walk you through these in a very brief fashion. Feel free to take your time with them, ask questions, and then we can just go from there, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Mayor, Commissioners, thanks for having us. Shane said I'm on a real short leash, so I'll go through it as quick as I can, but obviously stand for any questions that you may have. Bottom line, we've drafted 3 ordinances that would amend respectively. The first one, your comprehensive plan. The second one deals with code amendments, your land development regulations. And the third ordinance deals with your town center special area plan. Our design to work together, to be integrated and a coordinated approach between the 3, so that they've been drafted while separate ordinances and they address separate parts of your planning platform. They, in fact, speak to a number of the issues that need to be integrated. The first of the 3, Ordinance 2014-05, would amend your comprehensive plan, and it does 3 essential things. It creates, first and foremost, a new plan category, which we've called Resort Facilities High. It allows additional potential density for temporary lodging use, or simply said, hotels. It revises and streamlines the planned redevelopment mixed-use plan category. When you read your comprehensive plan today, and you'll see there's 2 or 3 pages of basically strikeout, where the plan, your comprehensive plan language was actually adopted prior to your special area plan, and it used different terminology. It had a number of requirements in there that were in place at the time that frankly now burden you in some ways that you don't need to have in there. And further, the countywide plan is being updated as we speak and would eliminate some of those provisions that we don't need or want necessarily in your comprehensive plan. So that's the second of the 3 changes. And the third would amend the goals, objectives, and policies to enable and speak to the provision for density intensity averaging, which is an additional tool that we would like to add to your land development regulations to give you some additional flexibility with respect to redevelopment. So in short, that first ordinance would amend your comprehensive plan in those 3 ways. As Lynn pointed out to the Planning Commission last night, because those are amendments to your comp plan, once you conclude your first ordinance reading, those need to get sent out to the state and county agencies for review before it comes back to you for conclusion and second reading. So some additional steps in that process that don't apply to the second ordinance. Mayor, you tell me, you want me to stop there and answer any questions the commission has, or go through all 3 and then come back?
I think, Mr. Mayor, these 3 resolutions or ordinances, although they're separate, they're intertwined. And so it might just make more sense for Mr. Healy to give his entire presentation. And then if you've got a question on any aspect of any of the ordinances, you can do it at the end.
One quick question. I'm sorry, David.
Commissioner, sure.
We were going to do this several years ago. Did we send this to Tallahassee for the review already?
We sent the amendments we did make,
yes,
Commissioner, up there,
yes,
where we incorporated the development agreement process in your plan and code.
It's got to go back to Tallahassee, is what you're telling me?
It's, yes.
It'll take some time.
Yes.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I just thought we'd already sent it. Thank you.
The second ordinance, 2014-06, would amend your land development regulations. It does 2 main things. It defines and establishes the procedures and requirements for the density-intensity averaging. So in your comp plan, we enable it. We say this is the policy of the city to make provision for it. And then in your land development regulations, we address the specifics. Here's what the process, here's what it means, and here's how the process works. And I can go through that with you in any detail that you would like. But essentially, it would require someone to make application. Staff would review it. It allows for approval by the city manager, an agreement that gets filed of record with the clerk of the court as well. The second change, it cleans up a number of the items with respect to the planned development zoning district. You'll see that we are requiring, as a function of creating the new resort facilities high plan category, that in order to utilize it, it requires rezoning and approval by the city commission. And there are a number of just details to that that we've cleaned up and addressed in your land development regulations. The most important part of that, other than kind of the housekeeping provisions, is the point I just made, that in order to use the resort facilities high plan category, which would allow for the additional temporary lodging use, it must go through a rezoning process. Land development tied to a site plan and a development agreement over which the commission has ultimate authority. So it isn't a blank check, it isn't automatic. It gives the development community an opportunity to apply for it, but subject to your review and approval through that rezoning process. There were a couple of changes. This is the one ordinance that the Planning Commission recommended changes to, and I'll identify those specifically for you, along with suggestions that Mr. Trask made. On page 4, first of all, we had made provision that if somebody applies to use the density-intensity averaging provision, and there are costs associated with that to the city, that the city can recover those costs from the applicant, be reimbursed for the cost of reviewing it or processing it as you see fit. The Planning Commission suggested the wording change from the city may require to the city shall require the applicant to reimburse the city. And in the second line where it says incurred as a function of reviewing, strike the word approving and insert the word processing. Obviously, the mere fact that you charge them to process the application doesn't mean you have to approve it.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Ely. The draft that you've got on your desk with the corrections in it had a typo. So it's not permitting, I believe it's processing. So if you want to scratch that out, we'll get clean copies, obviously, ready for you to adopt at the BOC meeting. But that's the only change that we have to change today. Otherwise, all the other edits are in blue.
Okay. I didn't realize you already had them. And then the other change was on page 6 with respect to the title for section 110-386, be entitled Purpose of Plan Development, PD District, to make that more clear. So those are basically the two fundamental changes in that second ordinance. The third ordinance deals exclusively with your town center special area plan that the city adopted in 2009, and it attempts to provide some of the implementation tools that the plan said it needed and that you would address, but so far haven't been put in place. And the three main things that it does are as follows. It first of all makes it clear that the higher potential density that we've allowed in the first two ordinances is available in the town center plan for the commercial core and portions of the Causeway District, specifically the C3 and C4 zoning districts in the town center plan. So if someone wanted to utilize that potential application for higher density, they can do so in that part of the town center plan. And the second change we made was to provide for the so-called additive density, again in that limited part of the Causeway District. By that we mean other than in the commercial core area of the town center plan today, when you compute density and intensity for a mixed use, you apportion it or proportion it based on the amount of area allocated to each separate use. Under this provision, you're essentially allowed to have the full component of residential density, commercial retail, and or temporary lodging, and not need to apportion it among the three separate uses. The idea is to encourage mixed use. That's what the objective of the plan is, and this will help, we feel, facilitate that. The third change, and I'll let Al Carrier take over, is to then update and amend Appendix B. Appendix B, when it was adopted back in 2009, attempted to compare what the development potential was under the then current plan as opposed to the town center plan. And we're updating that to reflect these other changes that we're making relative to potential development impacts, just so that's clear on the record. And I'll let Al speak to the methodology and details of that. Commissioner? Yes. About 75. Okay. Sure. I know everybody can't see this, but this is the map. It includes 5 sub-districts, so-called Peninsula District that you're reworking right now with your City Hall Recreation Open Space Complex. The triangular or semicircular area surrounded by Madeira Way, 150th out to the Causeway, and a short distance down Gulf Boulevard, simply to the, essentially the first series of properties there on 150, as well as the beachfront. So it's that area. It's defined legally in your plan. It's an adopted category. There are those 5 sub-districts that differentiate within it as to the so-called character and intent and standards within each. But it's that limited subscribed area, Commissioner. Yeah. Yes, it gives you additional flexibility with respect to the density, intensity of use, primarily. And it does set up a procedure to do that, and I continue to emphasize that. It isn't, we aren't opening the floodgates here. It's a process that's measured and structured so that the city is ensure that it gets what it wants as part of the process. You're offering additional opportunity, but in return for that, you want a quality development. And that's the quid pro quo, if you will, of the process. I don't think it would address that, Commissioner, because it tends only to this last ordinance addresses only the town center, and only the only thing we're changing within the Causeway area are the commercial designations, C3 and C4. Okay. Al, elaborate on Appendix B.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commission. I'm Al Carrier with Doolin Associates. We were tasked with looking at how are these 3 ordinances going to affect the special area plan in regards to your infrastructure. So what we were tasked to do is look at the maximum development and see how it impacts your water, your wastewater, your transportation, recreation, and stormwater facilities. When this document was originally written, it was written back in 2000, 2005, 2006. And at that time, it related to your city comprehensive plan at that time, as well as the county-wide rules and as well as the county level of service. What we had done is looked at it again and brought it up to date. The county-wide rules were just readopted and amended back in February of this year, 2014. And then the county-wide level of service was rewritten back in 2013, December this past year. When we looked at this, we went through, changed the values, reevaluated the impacts. Nothing really changed, to be honest with you. There was slight changes, but what ended up happening was, for instance, if we looked at the potable water, the way the water was calculated previously was based on number of people living in a dwelling unit. Well, back in 2005, that was 1.74 people per dwelling unit. Moving forward to 2014, that had changed to 2.6 for people per dwelling unit. So there's an increase in number of people living in a unit, but the water demand, because we're more water-wise, certain measures that have been taken with, different faucets, the way people utilize water, reclaimed water is now being implemented. So that dropped from like 127 to 119 gallons per person per day. So it was a wash. There were certain other impacts, like on wastewater, again, because of reclaimed water, the use of the potable water went down. The amount of wastewater being generated also went down. With that being said, what the plan actually does, the 3 ordinance, is it gives an opportunity for developers to come in and look at maximum potential, see what actually can fit into what maybe their development could be potentially. But I will emphasize, when a developer comes in and he may have high hopes of putting a lot on a piece of property, it's governed by your land development code. It still has to go through the process for your land development code to look at, your specific wastewater requirements, your setback requirements, your landscape requirements, and it's governed by that. It's governed by what staff will allow, and then eventually come before you all as a plan development to figure out whether or not that fits your needs and what it meets the city character. So with that, basically the analysis came back. It meets the analysis. There's no substantial changes. The other thing we looked at, when you look at the countywide rules, it kind of gives a broad brush stroke of what can be developed on a particular piece of property. We looked at it from an engineering standpoint of, we took a mock piece of property and we put as much development on as we could in conjunction with the land development code, your code. And what we found out was, based on the maximum potential that's allowed by the plan, in reality, it's about 60% or 70% less developable than what's designated in your plan. So with that being said, the potential is always less than what we found to be allowable in the plan. So your infrastructure analysis basically comes back and says that the maximum potential is there to develop, but the analysis itself, the amount of facilities you have available, you guys meet the need. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
So Al, if you- the county will create, the county or,
Mayor, can you use your microphone?
sorry.
The county's looking for more commercial or more name brand hotels being into Pinellas County. Is this something, working with the county plan, that's been able to do this, or is this more of a hybrid of the county plan?
I believe it's more of a hybrid.
Yeah, okay.
It's more specific to
To the needs of
to
Madeira
these-
Beach, yes, okay. Thank you, Al. I didn't know if that one was going to be you, Dave, or Al, so thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does staff have any comments they'd like to make?
No, Mayor, if there are no more further questions by the commission, this was unanimously passed by the Plan Commission last night. This would be before you at your next BOC meeting for the first reading with the necessary edits to 2014-06, and then the second reading in August, barring that we won't have any other meetings in between there.
What's the commission's pleasure? We have a consensus? Okay. Mr. City Manager? Dave, Al, thank you very much. I know y'all been working on this for quite a bit of time, so thank you very much. I watched last night's meeting on the computer screen, and y'all did a fantastic job, and I can't say enough about the Planning Commission. They did an outstanding job also last night. So, Mr. City Manager, I know you were here, and you're kind of late last night too, so thank you very much. All right, I guess we'll move back to A.
Sure, if
Okay.
you want to get started on that, and if I can do a little introduction, and
All right.
we'll give it to the right guys. Mayor, I believe it was you that wanted to just get a quick update on the City Hall construction, and so that's why Hennessy is here. Sid Talsma is our key contact for them. Wanamaker Jensen is here. Jason Jensen himself is here. Our on-site guy Harold is here. But there's a name there that you may or may not remember. And Bill Carnes came to me a month or two ago, and you may know him. Dave Marsicano and him have history. Carnes' company built the ship store out at the marina. And Bill and his wife are here, and they have a very an interesting background, and they represent a group of people that I'd like them to explain to you. But what he was looking to do in a local municipality was to have some sort of park, and I would call it more of a memorial. It's not a morbid type thing. It's actually a place where you go to reflect on a past loved one and feel happy about it instead of more, a morbid feeling. And he was turned down, and he came into my office and asked, geez, Shane, is there anywhere to do that in Madeira Beach? And I think for one reason or another, one of those diagrams were up in my office, and I said, Bill, we don't have, we're built out. We don't have a whole lot of park area, but we do have this, and how would this grab you? So he took a look at it, and we both kind of went back to our respective corners to think about it, and he came back to me and he said, this is going to work. So long story short, and I'll let him do a lot of the talking. He's a much better public speaker than I am, but what he wants to do is become a subcontractor under Hennessy, and by doing that, the way that the GMP was placed, you're all very aware of that. There's X amount of dollars for every certain aspect of the project. So there's $250,000 for AV, that's probably a bad example, or there's $300,000 for sidewalks and $400,000 for roofing. You kind of follow where I'm going. What he wants to do is ask for a portion of what was put into the GMP, approximately 50%, so a small amount. So right off the bat, we're saving money. But what he wants to do is upgrade the facility significantly, probably quadruple it. And so what he wants to do is for $150,000 of our money, bring us approximately between $500,000 and $750,000 worth of value to the landscaping of the entire project. Basically, if I'm looking at that middle picture over there, everything that kind of goes along the water. So for example, where we were going to have a shell path, he wants to now make a paver path. And he wants to include certain amenities that would be frankly donated to us to upgrade the facility, as long as we're comfortable going along with what his mission is and these people that he represents. And again, I'll let him do that. So if we can invite everybody up to the podium, Sid and Jason, I think, can give a very quick synopsis of where we're at from a building perspective. Bill and his folks have been working hand in glove with these folks, so everything fits together. Everybody's communicating. Everybody knows what's going on. But the good news is right now we're within budget and we're slightly ahead of schedule. You can see everything that's going on out there. We haven't run into too many snags, except we had a little water in the fire department the other night, which that'll happen. So maybe we'll start with Sid from a construction manager standpoint. You can give your quick synopsis, and we'll move on to the next.
Good afternoon. I'm Sid Talsma with Hennessy. I'm the project manager for your project here. I'm glad to announce that we've passed a milestone that was worrying the heck out of me over the past, and that's we put 400 piles in without finding that bridge that somebody told us was buried out there. So right there, I feel better already. Never had a schedule. Always on, budget-wise, we're doing pretty darn well with the budget. We're controlling it, which makes me happy. No big surprises to this point. Just kind of a snapshot of where we are now. We just started setting steel at the rec center today. That should be set out in about 3 weeks. Water main starts tomorrow at the rec center. We're going to pretty much work the site from the rec center in this direction because we have a couple of ponds that we can't build at this end of the site until we get rid of the old city, or this city hall, after the first of the year. We hope to have the rec center and fire station ready for occupancy before the end of the year. We'd like to have the city hall ready probably right after the first of the year, January, early February. We've got one last wild card to get through, and that's a surcharge load that we have to place on the fire station pad. And what that does is we're stacking 3 foot of extra dirt on top of the pad to go ahead and compress the existing substrate to make sure that we don't have any settlement in the apparatus bays where the fire engine park. So it's kind of a critical structural effect for the slab. The building itself is on piles, so we can build the building, which we see going up in the next 2 weeks, We'll start the block wall, so you'll see that rising up. But we can't go ahead and pour slabs until we get that settlement down to a manageable point where the soils engineer says go. So that's kind of a snapshot of where we are, and we're real happy and we're real excited about the project. It'll be quite a project when it's all done.
Yeah, it's exciting seeing concrete poured. It's been moving right along, and it's kind of a fast scale, so that's why I had a chance to talk to the city manager, kind of update everybody, because everybody will come by and say, oh my gosh, what's happening?
Sure.
Yeah,
And
so y'all are doing a
anytime y'all
fantastic
have
job.
any questions, please feel free. That's what we're here for.
Or if anyone wants a site visit, make sure you register here. We'll get you a hard hat, but we'll get you out there and show you what's going on. It's pretty exciting, so
Yeah,
whenever
we'll
you
get you a
want to
guided
go out
tour whenever. You got a bird's eye view.
And you can take a swim while you're there.
Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions?
there. If maybe we can get to Jason and the architects first, and then we'll, sure.
It's all the, yep, all the new fill went in under compaction, and each lift is tested to make sure that it meets the compaction requirement and moisture requirements. But then in addition to that, we got to stack 3 foot of additional fill on top of the fill, our subgrade, just to help a load, to help compress the substrate below. And the substrate below is what's below this building, not what we're building on top of. So it's, it's in the old fill, per se, underneath the building. You've got a strata that all the piling bears down on it about, I think it's 25 foot down. That's real hard material. In other words, we drove all the piling to a point of refusal, which means we have to hit that darn thing, I can't remember, it was 20 times, and if it doesn't go more than an inch, that's refusal. And we're hitting it with a 5,000-pound hammer, so it's a pretty good load going in there. But what they did, I guess, evidently, when this area was developed, it may have been dredgings that were pumped up or dredged up and dumped, and they have a little bit of silt in them. And sometimes silt doesn't compact real well unless you go ahead and apply those loads to it, and that's what we're trying to accomplish with the fire station. City Hall, we didn't need it because we're on piling all the way. We're an elevated building. Rec Center, we don't have quite the loads going on out there, plus shorter spans on the structure itself. But all your buildings are on piling, so they're not going anywhere. So.
Yeah, luckily, we did a lot of testing at the beginning, and some of you remember the first third of the project. We uncovered some of the difficult soil conditions, so it's all accommodated in the structure, which is great. Which means, to date, we really haven't come across any unforeseen conditions that everybody stage right now that we can feel really comfortable about having all the foundations and the piles driven, that we know what we're into. We didn't have any piles drop down through not find that refusal as Sid mentioned. So we can be resting at ease a little bit on that. Along with that, the project in general, because of that, has stayed within the budget that we've discussed, and we're maintaining schedule and budget right along. So we're happy and confident with the efforts that's been happening with the contractor and the subcontractors to date, and which really brings us to where we're at today with the budget portion of what we're talking about. But when Shane and this group came to us to talk about how to incorporate into the design, that's really what it was, incorporating and enhancing and collaborating with all of the efforts that we as a group collaboratively have pushed forward to give this community in the park and all the amenities. So to enhance that, not to diverge or do something different, but how can we enhance and add a new layer of significance, a new layer of pride to everything that we've already designed. So the last couple of months have worked really hand in hand between the city, the designers, and the group that's going to speak to you now to design what we're showing today. So there are improvements to the plan, but it's enhancement. We haven't changed the initial plan per se that you have approved and moved forward with. So with that, I'll turn it over to to them to tell you about the significance of it, and then we'll go into a little more detail of the individual items after they give you the big picture of what's being planned.
Mayor, councilmen and women, staff, appreciate the opportunity to present our program, our vision is for the park here in Madeira Beach. 16 months ago, my wife and I suffered a loss of our son, and we joined a large fraternity of people that have lost a child. And in my travels back and forth to Ocala, Florida, we have assisted living property up there. I was introduced from another member of this fraternity that I've become a part of that was called Mom's Park. It was Memories of Missing Smiles, and it brought great comfort to my wife, my family, and I to go through this park. Some of the features that they had in this park is a walking trail, but they had a waterfall and reflection pond. They had butterfly garden. They had little memorials that were placed, little rocks that had a little memento to their child with flowers. They had trees that were planted with a little small placard in recognition of their loved ones that they had lost. And I had an opportunity to sit down with Shane a couple months ago, work with Wanamaker Jensen and their staff to design something that I think is extremely special to the community, and not just the Madeira Beach community. I'm talking about the entire Pinellas County area. There's no park like this where people can go and reflect. A lot of folks aren't comfortable going to a cemetery. We're not trying to build a cemetery here in Madeira Beach. Passion for me and my family was the splash pad that you see over to the left here. This would be located just to the left on the site plan of the new rec center. Lots of activity going on in the rec center. Thought that'd be a great opportunity for our family, our Carnes Family Foundation, to donate that beautiful splash pad to the city. And you'll see there's some shading. The white shading is the actual splash pad itself, and the darker shading, we'd like to offer families like ourselves opportunity to place a memorial brick, a brick for their loved one in that area. And we've designed this with the thought that we want to concentrate those memorials and those markers in certain areas, because the reflection pond and that area over there by the city hall, Jason and his team did a wonderful job in designing the waterfall feature and the reflection pond. You see in the water itself, there's some little round markers in there that someone could put the name of their child on there, maybe a birthday, that date. But again, nothing that would be morbid. We want it to be a place that people come, can sit, reflect. It's on the water. I mean, what an opportunity. The dolphins swimming by. We did a great job on the design, working with Shane, trying to incorporate the city colors into ROC Park, ROC Park, which stands for Remember Our Children Park. And I think the short time that I've been involved in this, I was able to get a substantial contribution from Home Depot. When I say substantial, probably in the $200,000 value for all the trees and plants, and really make some improvements into what was lacking. We went with the brick pavers as opposed to the shell. I think that's going to be a product that's going to last obviously much longer than the shell. It's going to look much better. Another improvement to the area here at the city. We worked with Mike Allstott's Family Foundation, and we were able to generate funds to pay for the sunshades that you see. And a donation from them and another family, friends of ours, and our son, whose son was killed in a tragic car accident. They wanted to donate one of those sunshades. We haven't even begun reaching out to the community yet, and I know there's literally thousands and thousands of people who have suffered a loss and would love to get behind a project like this to improve not only the city, but to give someone an opportunity to just meander through the park. We have a butterfly garden in the center. Point that out, Scott. In Ocala, they had the Boy Scouts. They did little bird's nests projects that they could get their Eagle Scout award. So we get the whole community involved. We'd like to do some fundraisers in an ongoing annual fashion, maybe 2 or 3 fundraisers. We were thinking about Rock Park, have a music festival there to raise some money. I'd like to do a run for the park and to raise some money. We'd like to continue to expand on the park. I was talking to Shane as annual basis, and we continue to raise funds. Scott Brainerd is my corporate counsel, and he set up 501c3 for Rock Park, so we can continue after my lifetime to raise money for the park. We'd like to see a fishing pier added down the road, that things that we could do through our fundraising efforts that wouldn't be a burden onto the city financially to get these improvements. We've got a magnificent new complex going on, the City Hall, Fire Department, Rec Center. I think we're going to be very successful in raising plenty of funds. I had a meeting at 11 o'clock with the Regional Vice President at Home Depot, and they offered to, I see there's a dog park in the design, they offered to provide the fencing and that's required to do that. So without even just at the tip of the iceberg reaching out, we've raised over $500,000 already. I think this is going to exceed everybody's expectations when it comes to the fundraising side of it and the different events that we can do here, bring people to the city. And people from other communities, when they come and watch their kids play baseball games from Seminole, Pinellas Park, and come and enjoy the park, use the park, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking to take a bad situation and turn it into a positive. Appreciate the opportunity that you've given us to do this today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I have a question. Sorry.
Question.
I have a question. Oh, I just wanted to ask, you said that you do pavers over there.
Yeah, brick pavers.
Okay, and they would be like inscripted with someone's name?
Well,
Is
we
that the
tried to
intention?
concentrate them into a couple areas, and if you look, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
If you look in the splash pad area, there's a piece of different colored paver there than the main path. Those would be the memorial pavers. Same with in the waterfall area, you'll see some darker pavers, and those would be opportunities for people to purchase a brick paver. The money would go to the profit and you enhance the park. You know, brick pavers, $75 to $150 depending on the size. Those pods that Jason designed, you see looks like the wood on top. Well, those are sunshades, but the pods down there, we've had many families already that expressed they'd like to put a little placard on there, and they're going to donate money for those. There's benches that go along. Again, another small placard. I was up in Michigan this past weekend with my 93-year-old uncle who made quite a contribution to his local city and built a $250,000 shelter along the waterfront park there, and pretty sharp for 94 years old. He said, Bill, this doesn't have to be for people that have lost a child. This may be families that just want to place a marker there for their family or for their children. So again, we want this to be a happy place. You know, there's lots of activity going on there, and honor and cherish those memories that we all have lost.
That's awesome. And city manager and staff and Wanamaker Jensen, I can't, how fast y'all got this done in the middle of a project.
They were excellent to work with.
Sir, I
my
imagine
hats off.
so. And y'all coming up and doing this, the splash park, I can't imagine anything nicer.
Yeah.
I just think you should have done it last, so that all of our makeup didn't run down our face.
I'm glad I didn't wear any today.
Yeah, thank God I didn't either.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if it pleases the commission, it's a twofold type thing today that I just wanted to make sure that the commission is on board with. One is that you have to be comfortable with Bill and his wife and his family's foundation and what they're trying to do. Again, when we first discussed this, there's nothing cemetery or morbid about this. This is supposed to be a happy place, and you can tell by the design that that's certainly the case. then you also have to be comfortable with the fact that your spec has changed. Unlike 99% of the time, you're getting upgraded for less money. And so, you know, at the end of the day, there's no set budget. You know, those dollars will fluctuate throughout the budget. But Bill is going to give you 4 or 5 times more than what we had originally planned for. And so, just like Jason said, this is an enhancement. This is a pride type thing. And you can tell from Bill's presentation, it doesn't end next year when we dedicate this. I think this is kind of an ongoing type thing that will help us, you know, continue to upgrade it, maintain it, that type of thing. But this will be our park. Our city staff, our city resources will be maintaining it once it's built, but that was going to be the case anyway. So basically what you've got in front of you today is a spec change for the better for less money. Can't go wrong. So if everybody just wants to give us the thumbs up on that one, I think that that's
I'm sure you
good to
have a
go with the
consensus
crew.
from the commission.
Then we'll continue along with Bill. Bill, you and your group are good to go. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the support.
Thank you. I'm going to give them a second to take off before we move on to item B.
Sure.
All right, next, item B, discussion on staffing for recreational parks and events. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another quick one. I've talked to most of you privately prior to this months ago. There's going to be a small budget amendment put in front of you at the next BOC meeting. I put out applications. We all knew that we were going to have to hire some staff to run the rec center, and you know, in our first year, we're certainly going to push for making it a profit center, but we have to do our due diligence and be responsible with what you are creating out there. And for example, I've had a series of meetings in the recent past. The Marriott Hotel, for example, wants to lease out our banquet facility for conferences. They don't have a conference room or center there that's as sizable as ours. And so their first question is, what's the fee? What's your catering schedule? Who's your caterer? What's the catering menu? And all those things kind of blew our doors off a little bit because we don't have anybody on staff to kind of run with that. So what I want to do, long story short, is hire the rec leader, the rec director, maybe a leisure services person that'll handle the events, the rentals, and those kinds of things, much sooner than the buildings are being built. I think we have to put them in a room. They need to get on the phone. They need to start marketing. We have to start putting these things together. So long story short, I want to get them on before October 1. They're built into the city manager's budget that you'll see on Monday as of October 1. I want to get them on a month and a half earlier than that, so you'll just see a small budget amendment at your next BOC meeting. Just didn't want to throw anybody off guard with that. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Any questions for the City Manager? Next, item C, discussion on the purchase of Don's Dog. Mr. City Manager.
Another item, I think you're all aware of what's probably occurred. I've spoken to some of you privately. I'd like to keep this topic brief. All I can tell you is that we've learned that the tenant has exercised a clause in their lease to purchase the property. They have 30 days from the time of notice, which was sometime last week, that the owners forgot to contact us in regards to telling us that this clause had been exercised. There might have been a little, I don't even want to get into that. Anyway, I think we're in a position now, it's a wait and see type thing, but I would, for all intensive purposes, from our standpoint, I had Vince take the project out of the budget. I would be shocked to see that this property now becomes available to the city, and if it does, we'll just have to react accordingly.
Thank you. Any commissioners with any questions for the City Manager on this topic? Nope. Next, item D, discussion on A-frame signs and flutter signs. Mr. City Manager.
This can be as quick as you all want to make it. This is just a tickler type item for the city clerk. So when we went ahead and approved this, you remember that we allowed this. Tom, City Attorney Trask had presented this to us. It works in another community. If unemployment's at a certain level or less, they allow for these types of signs. Our annual review of that unemployment number hasn't occurred yet, but we said in 6 months, let's decide whether or not flutter signs and A-frame signs have taken over the city or if anything negative has happened. We've only experienced positive comments and reaction to this. If you all haven't, that might be a different story, but staff's recommendation is to allow it as is.
Commissioner, you got any questions for the city manager on this?
We had it tied to unemployment, we're no longer trying to go ahead and implement it.
No, it's still tied to that unemployment rate, but our annual review of that unemployment percentage hasn't occurred yet. This occurred first. I think, within the next 6 months, we'll take a look at it.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Next, item E, discussion on land lease FDOT parcel in Johns Pass Village.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if you remember at a previous meeting, we were about to award a bid on this, and at the 11th hour, FDOT had contacted us, and I don't know if it was somebody on staff had learned that there might be something. It was Amy or Tom, or I don't mean to not give credit to where credit's due. Anyway, long story short, this plot was given to us in an effort to always have it available for the public good. So really what we were going to do was not kosher. So what I suggest is this. In an earlier budget amendment, you had already approved money for us to do the renovation. I say that staff's recommendation is to go in there, rip out some of the shrubbery, put some pavers down, and either provide the tables and chairs in a receptacle, and if the Bamboo Beer Garden patrons want to use it, or if Shane Crawford walking down the street wants to sit there, or Tom Trask, anybody can use that. It would be almost like a small city park, and just leave it at that. I think it's worth consideration because it is at that focal point of Johns Pass. It certainly shows action. It shows vehicular traffic that there's something going on there, and I think it's not a bad idea. I think, Dave, the estimate was $3,000 or $4,000 will be invested into this to make that happen, and the money's already there to do it if you so wish. Right. Yeah. We're not going to take that out. We were going to maybe trim that down a little bit, but the border of that shrubbery will remain intact.
I have a question. If they do this and say the patrons from Bamboo Beer Garden want to use it, can they actually take their beer or whatever they're drinking over and sit over there?
No, really they can't. The enforcement down there has been somewhat lenient, but really they shouldn't be taking plastic over there. So we'll have to work with them on that. It is Johns Pass. There is a certain leniency that's granted if people are having a plastic cup of beer or a soda sitting outside one of the restaurants. It's when they transfer from wet zone to wet zone, from bar to bar or bar to store or something like that. So we'll work with them on that.
Everybody good? Item F, discussion on stormwater fee rate study, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, we're going to invite Mr. Carrier up. You have a study in front of you, or you should. This is a lot of reading. You need to take some time with it. Concentrate on the first 5-6 pages. That's all you really got to get into. Vince and Dave and Al and I have been working on this for quite some time. If you remember, we had discussed changing our stormwater rates to match the amount of money that we need to, frankly, update, remodel, or replace our stormwater utility. So when we went to that, City Attorney Trask said, well, in order to do that, you have to go through these steps to do that. And basically, this is the step. And the final product is in front of you today. Basically, what it represents is a justification. There's, I believe, 3 options in it, and Al can go over it with you. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to see that doubling your rate, if not more, is justified based off of what we have to do with our stormwater out there. So with that, Vince and Dave, I don't know if you have anything to add. Otherwise, Al, we'll have you up, and you can kind of just give them the nickel tour of this report. And then, there's nothing that has to be decided today, nor can be really. Take some time with it. Decide if raising that rate is what you want to do. I think that's the political decision that you're going to have to come down to. But remember, with everything that we're doing, we need to pay for what needs to get done. And so doubling this rate makes doable what we're doing. And remember, this and Al can attest to this. You all know we've basically received a $2.5 million grant from SwiftMud for our next section of town that we've got to do. there's more money sitting out there, but we have to at least be ready to pay for that 50%. Otherwise, we're going to say no to millions and millions of dollars to get these done. And so you can say, you know, I think raising this fee is a bad idea, but if you don't and you miss out on these millions of dollars, you're going to end up taxing your residents when it comes down to the absolute need to fix that. So make sure that you're weighing that in your mind when you're evaluating this. And with that, I'll give it to Al and Vince and Dave. You feel free to jump in whenever you need.
Hi, Al Carrier, Doolin Associates. As Shannon mentioned, this really started with the barnacle removal contract and the need for Dave to have some handle on what the condition of the city's in. And if you remember, we did the barnacle removal contract, which removed all the barnacles and debris from the outfalls, stormwater outfalls, and that project's still ongoing. But as part of that, as they clean the outfall pipes, they videotape so we can get a condition report of what the pipe looks like. The most up-to-date report that we have from Inliner, who's actually doing that report, is in this book that you have. But basically what we had done is we'd broken the city up into 8 different areas, and we assessed, or tried to assess, the condition of your infrastructure. We look at, you know, settlement and roadways, settlement and curbs. We looked at the videos that we got from Inliner of the outfalls. We look at the condition of the pipes as best we can, looking down into the inlets. Really, it's 20 pages of just a condition report for you all to review. And then there's a breakdown in the back of what different levels of ERUs would be required to get you to a certain level of city need. I will mention, as you're reading through this, and you're driving through the city, kind of be a little perceptive of what's going on with settling curbs. Sometimes you may look at a roadway and it looks fine. Like, for instance, out on Rex Place, we just got a call last week that one of the pipes had failed. And when I originally looked at that a couple months ago, the curbs look like they're in great shape. The asphalt looks like it's in great shape. But until you actually do an assessment of everything that's in the roadway, you don't realize what the condition of the pipe was. And in that case, it was a CMP pipe, corrugated metal pipe, that was completely rotted, and it had taken a large portion of the roadway. So there's a component in this report that will help you move forward with maintaining what you have now, and then addressing different areas and going after SwiftMud grant dollars to help you fund some of those improvements. So take a read. I'm sure you're going to have plenty of questions. I'll be available for you all at any time to do one-on-ones, or if you want to go out in the field and look and see what my perspective was, feel free to call me. We can set up the meeting through Shane, and we'll try and bring you all up to speed on what your condition of the city is. Not, in general, the city is in decent shape. Your infrastructure was actually built very well back in the 40s and 50s, but there's certain areas that there's a need. There's a need for infrastructure improvements. And so with that, if you have any questions.
Al, can you kind of walk them through, and I haven't gotten through the entire report, but you had mentioned to me last night there's a couple of options. Can we just walk them through that so that they, they're going to,
the options?
They're going to get the city manager's budget on Monday, and Vince and I need a feel for which way we're going to go in regards to funding for some of this stuff. So if you could walk them through that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. If you look on page 17, you'll see there's a chart in there. And you'll see that I broke the area up into 8 different, or the city up into 8 different areas. And based on rebuilding the city to a certain level of service, we put together numbers, construction cost estimates as well as engineering estimates for the total dollars that would be required to bring the city up to all brand new roadways, all brand new infrastructure. And that's where you come up with that $22 million total. Now, that isn't, in my opinion, that's not needed all right now. That's something that it's a goal that we need to start working on. It may be a 10-year or 20-year goal or life to get to that point. But there's a dire need in your city to address the stormwater pipes that are in the ground. And if you look on page 21, basically, where we're at is you guys are at ERU of $5. That's $5 per ERU. That funding source generates about $350,000 a year. And what that does, that covers your city vehicles, your city staff as it sits right now. And it leaves just a little bit of money, not much, maybe $30,000 or $40,000 a year to fix and address maintenance issues. The collapsed pipe on Rex Place or a failing seawall that has a pipe going through it. And in general, if you can kind of keep this in mind, one ERU equals about $70,000 in revenue. So if you look at the chart, option 1, it's set up in different columns, but to fund the Area 2 project, and I apologize, I'm jumping around here, but the money that we got granted, or potential grant money from SwiftMud, is $1.34 million from SwiftMud. They require a 50-50 match. So the city has to come up with the match dollars for not only that $1.3 million, but the entire project cost at the onset. And the reason for that is SwiftMud tends to delay their reimbursement by a couple of months. Sometimes it's within a couple of weeks. Sometimes it may take a couple of months. So as the contractor's working through the project, they're going to be giving us invoices. We have to pay those, but we have to make sure that we can cover his cost, and then we submit to SwiftMud. They give us the reimbursement. So the next project that's on the list that we applied for through SwiftMud is Area 2, which is BOC, that entire peninsula, if you will. Project cost is $2.5 million. SwiftMud's going to pay for half of that. As we work our way across, we will need basically 3.3 ERUs to cover the debt service for us to go out and acquire money, to have the money on hand to match the SwiftMud funding. Of that $2.5 million, we will get half of that back. So as we move forward in time, once that project's complete, a year from now, a year and a half from now, we'll have $1 million left in our coffers for you all to decide on what project to do next, or if you just want to keep that for maintenance, or how to move forward. So the minimum amount of ERUs that would be required at this point to get the SwiftMud match funding and keep your system operating is 3.3 ERUs, which would cover the grant, and 5 ERUs, which would cover the operating expenses, for a total of 8.3 ERUs. We're currently at 5. We need to be at 8.3 ERUs to meet the SwiftMud requirement, match requirement. The second option down below, which is our recommended option, is to increase the ERUs to 10. That leaves us with an extra 1.7 ERUs, or about an extra $125,000 to $130,000 a year, every year, to go into a kitty, if you will, to pay for the ongoing maintenance projects. Fix pipes that collapse, fix inlets that are broken, that need to be repaired. And I had suggested to Dave that possibly we take an inventory of certain areas that have the most need, put that on the street for bid, have a contractor come in and fix those specific areas. And you do that on a yearly basis and continue to make those fixes as we move along. The third option, which I don't believe is a feasible option, is the $11 million need. Now, you remember on the previous chart, we had a total need of $22 million. Well, the $11 million would be if SwiftMud had the amount of money that, if they had an extra $11 million to give the city as a grant to pay for 50% of the projects. And we could do it all today, which we really can't. It's not feasible. But to put this in perspective, an $11 million project funding need for today would require an ERU of $20. And then the final option, option 4, is a $22 million need. If we were going to fix everything today, we didn't have the SwiftMud grant dollars available, but to fix everything today would be a $35 ERU fee, which is considerable. So again, getting to the conclusion, our recommendation is an ERU rate of $10, which gets you a little bit of money every year building up for maintenance. It gives you the grant dollars, the match grant dollars that are needed to get the Area 2 project done. And we'll leave you about $1 million, $1.3 million at the end of the project that you get back from SwiftMud to move forward with another project.
Al, just a quick question. Your option 2, and I mean, it sounds great. That would also give enough for maintenance for the outflows, keeping the outflows all cleaned up, the barnacles, and besides just general maintenance.
Yes.
Some of the little things.
We'd have that discretion, I think, as things come up, we would be able to just go ahead and do what needs to be done. Poor Dave, it seems like every other day he's coming into either Vince or I saying another pipe collapsed and it's gonna be, X amount of dollars, and it happens on a routine basis. So when, I think in Al's presentation, where we're at now, it gives us a remainder of $30,000 or $40,000. Dave could have eaten that up in the first quarter of this year. If we wouldn't have done the necessary budget amendments to get some of those pipes fixed. If you remember that, we were sleeving pipes and finding out collapsed pipes all over the place. So I think you're in a position where you have to make the adjustment, but I think a phased-in approach, a methodical phased-in approach while we're going after these free dollars from SwiftBud probably makes the most sense from a staff standpoint. Again, it's definitely a political decision to make, but in terms of the city manager's budget, if everybody's kind of walking out of here today with the consultant's recommendation, at least Vince and I have something to go off of in terms of what revenue to expect from the stormwater fund, but that's certainly our recommendation as well. We concur with the consultant.
Make sure there's any questions. Our city manager or Dave?
So you seem fairly confident that you didn't get any grant that you asked for?
There's, the way SwiftBud bases their grants, it's really based on land area and amount of removal, pollutant removal you get for the dollar. Typically, like if you're in the middle of the state, you may have these huge watersheds, these huge basins that all go to one river that you can put one big apparatus and clean a lot of that water out. Madeira is a little different. A lot of the coastal communities are different because you have all these smaller little basins, so it takes more apparatus, more they call them best management practices, things that you can put in the stream to take out the pollutants. So it raises the cost. But the difficulty is the coastal communities compete, and the district, Southwest Florida Water Management District, is several counties. So you compete with the people that get a better bang for the buck. Be quite honest with you, we submitted for the grant funding. We were ranked pretty low because of the cost effectiveness. And that's kind of my hiccup with SwiftMud is they kind of look at it with blinders, and I know they try to make it as fair as possible. We're still in the money, but we have a direct connect to Bogaciega Bay. I think that there should be a little more leniency. We should have been ranked a little bit higher because of our circumstance that we have. So, long story short, yes, I think that there's a number of projects in here, a number of areas in here that we can continue to go get those SwiftMud grant dollars. And I think we just work on it year after year. Just keep going, get your tax dollars. Go get that money back into the community and rebuild your city.
So this is obviously an ongoing project. Most of the pipes that have been collapsed have been replaced ever since the underground unit was built. Can you tell? Is there any map of our city saying this one was replaced in 1972, this one was 1947?
No.
The ones that are going, the ones that are starting to deteriorate, obviously.
No, when I took over, no, we don't have that information available. We do have a blueprint, which I think is in here. We've got maps that show our stormwater pipes and what is supposed to be there. I've found them in places that they say there's not a pipe, but there indeed was a pipe there. We're stumbling across a lot of this corrugated metal pipe, CMP pipe that is failing. What happened over here on the road on Rex Place, but we know. But there's nothing that shows us. There was no documentation done that says this pipe was done in '80. This one was done in '85. It's and a lot of it. It's not the outfalls, it's the connections. It's and the pipe that drains Rex Place runs across through into the yacht club basin. So it's not just replacing a pipe, it's the reconstruction of the entire area, bringing it back to what it was before. It's not just putting a pipe in the ground. So that's what kind of drives these costs up also.
I understand. This is the best-case scenario, the $22 million. Is it a lot of replacement of bigger diameter pipes, or is that staying pretty much consistent?
The $22 million is, I don't want to say the Cadillac, but it's the Chevy. It's like what we're doing out of Normandy. We're rebuilding the roadway where it's settled. We're replacing all the pipes. We're working in conjunction with Pinellas County because they maintain your water and wastewater system. Maybe a quick story for you. We didn't realize when we got out of Normandy that the sanitary sewer system was in such bad shape for a certain section. It was about 150 feet. When we started the project out of Normandy, we get in contact with Pinellas County and say, what's your sanitary sewer system look like? They say, it's fine, we slip lined it, you're good to go. Well, once we started construction out there, the neighbors came out at the north end. They all came out. They said, we can't flush our toilets. We haven't been able to flush our toilets for years. We got complaints to Pinellas County. Well, somewhere over there was a disconnect. So lo and behold, we get out there, and then Pinellas County ended up hiring the contractor, Caladisi, to go out and fix 4 of the laterals that went to homes. When they dug them up, the laterals they're just completely gone. They may have slip lined the main line, but they didn't look at all the laterals that was causing people problems. So as you move through these projects, sometimes the price can go up a little bit. The prices that are in here are on the higher end to try and anticipate some of that extra work that may be needed. I think certain areas, when you read the report, certain areas are in more need than others. As you work through and we get a better inventory of what's going on, those prices are going to drop, and the impact that's needed, the construction that's needed is going to be less than what's in the report. But this is for budget. This is, I'm standing on it. This is the number that if we had to rebuild the entire city today, that would be the number.
Good.
But again, and I'll mention that it's these available dollars that we should be going after, especially since we've had some luck so far. So you could go ahead and spend $22 million and do it today, but there's not an $11 million grant offered by SwiftMud today to say, yeah, go ahead and do that. That might be worthwhile to look into if it was there. But as we're having luck grabbing these 50% matching grants, I think we triage it. Al's done a good job of that. The next one, we know what the next 3 or 4 sections are based off of the flooding that we've got. We can go at this in a methodical way and get 50% of it funded. I think that's, I don't know how you can argue against that.
So basically just work the triage and then work the grant cycle through SwiftMud.
Triage it, and every chance we get, apply for those free
realistic
votes.
rate.
The report itself is only about 20 pages long, the assessment of the city and the recommendation. The other portion, the back portion, I had difficulty finding like ordinances, and thanks to Amy, she helped me find the ordinances and that got the stormwater utility developed and how it progressed through time. So I've included those ordinances. The Florida Stormwater Association, they are a group that monitors, if you will, and does surveys for communities. They determine what communities have what type of ERU or what type of stormwater utility and what their rate is, their utility rate, their ERU rate. So I've compiled that. That just came out a couple of weeks ago. So you can see what other communities are paying or what other communities are charging their customers for ERUs. So you can get a kind of a perspective of where you guys are in the pecking order, if you will, of where your ERU lies. I did a quick chart in there with what I would consider equivalent type communities and where your ERU would be at 10. You're right in the ballpark. For instance, Clearwater's at almost 14. Pinellas County just adopted at almost 10. It's 967 for ERU. So you can see what other communities are doing. And when you read through that, try and think of what Madera is. You're pretty densely populated here. It's an older community. You'd be on the same scale as, say, like Key West, densely populated, older community. But when you reflect on the numbers, there's a need there. You guys have a need, and think about what other communities are doing that are similar to you all. Also, the condition report. with all the outfalls. They're in here too, and we categorized all the outfalls and what the condition of the pipe is. So you can kind of flip through one document and figure out where your assessment is for your city.
Actually, it was the list of this last year, on all the outfalls and the discussion, how forwarded to a lot of residents that they have an idea.
Yes, and within the last probably 3 months, we got the videotapes back from Inliner. And so we sat down and we actually looked at every one of those videotapes and looked at the condition of the pipes. And there's a breakdown, it's A through F. And we put the condition actually on that sheet that you're looking at that shows the picture of the outfall, the size of the outfall, and what the condition of the pipe is.
Can we identify any other funding sources other than SWIP money?
Sometimes there are, typically no. Typically no. Usually the other funding sources are for larger watersheds. There are some opportunities for aquatic preserves that we've looked at that we can start going after. But most of those, again, are 50-50 matches. Some of the federal grants may be a 25% match. So you could get 50 from SWIFT money, 25 from the federal grant, and sometimes you'd have a 25% participation.
I'm going to ask people to double their fees. I just want to make sure that we're stone on.
Yes, you got to go after every available dollar that you can get.
Any questions? Carrier?
I think we're about 3/4 done, 75% done.
We're having this same issue as we're having with the groins. It's full moons, tides have been running extremely high. Yeah, and you can't camera the pipe when it's underwater, so and we didn't want to stick these guys. If you've heard those trucks run, I can't stick them out here at night at a low tide. That just wouldn't be practical. But we're close, though. It's taking a lot longer than I'd like, but
It's taking longer, and I think you're even heavier than that. I think the last invoice I approved was in the 80% completion rate, so I mean, we're definitely getting close to the 9th inning there, so.
Al, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Next, item G, discussion on green light for Nellis resolution. And commissioners, I know that we had the presentation at the last commission meeting. So we were asked if we would consider a resolution promoting it. So I'd like to hear y'all's comment after you've had a chance to think about it.
Well, as it was presented, we should save the money. We should save money as homeowners if we lose that tax. But I've talked to a few people who say, once you've got a tax, very seldom do they take it away. So as long as I think that they stand behind losing that 0.75 property, it makes sense. It just makes sense. I think it's good for the beaches. Obviously, to double the trolley service out Gulf Boulevard, that's a lot easier than anybody to stand out in the sun. But I'm okay with it.
You okay with it?
Everybody was impressed with the trolley. They all like the trolley service. They are concerned about the bus stops. If the bus stops will be taken care of, but that's through FDOT?
Partially. The reason that we kind of hit the brakes on that, and we're still moving ahead with 150th, but if we were to put in new bus stops now on Gulf Boulevard, when they redo it, when we bury the utility, they'd have to rip them all out. And so that's kind of what has halted that. And so in the meantime, we're still working with Commissioner Lister on the design and things of that sort. But that'll all be taken care of, but that'll be one massive project. So the road will get rebuilt, the utility will be buried, and the bus stops will be replaced.
Don't they have any benches that
I think we have the.
It's incorporated in this redesign, especially the heavier, help me out here, the ones that are utilized more, the higher utilization stops. And they're also going to take some out. There's some stops there that were
No riders.
none, zero. So they're going to clean it up a little bit too. So they'll be able, just the ones that are literally not being used, they'll remove.
I think we've got a bench everywhere, Ben. I think. I've looked. I think we have a bench everywhere now. I've asked for those to be put in.
They do walk off. We can, yeah. We'll take a look at that. We'll inventory that when we get a chance. And
Even the color.
Wow. Okey dokey.
rumor is the soft opening of the Snack Shack's Thursday. The soft opening for the Snack Shack will be Thursday.
Waiting for breakfast.
All right, Commissioner, still on the green light, Pinellas, I take it everybody's good. I mean, looking at it, some of the things that I've heard concerns about was number one of property, and hearing from them, I believe they said they had 60 or 70% of the right-of-way taken care of for the tracks. I think the busing thing, I think we all agree on. I think some of the question stuff has been on the tracks part, but moving people north and south, up and down the county seems to be the right idea, and moving them in and off the beaches and moving around our county is moving people is what it's about. It creates business and it creates tourism.
All right, if the will of the commission is to approve that, we'll have that on your next Board of
All right, we
Commissioners
have a
meeting.
consensus?
Everybody's on board?
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
All right.
Next up, item F, discussion on firefighter salary. Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll hand it over to Vince. The chief is in the audience as well. This is just a quick one. You've already basically approved it. We had a severe revolving door syndrome or phenomenon in our fire department, and it's basically we're in last place in terms of pay. So the fire union approached me with a relatively rich proposal. The chief and I and Vince whittled it down to this, and both sides concur. Vince can walk you through the significance of what they'll receive immediately. This does involve another tier of a position, a driver position, and we basically already have that. We pay a premium for the driver position. But I think I explained to you earlier, if you're a young guy, Vince wants to be a firefighter and he's 25 years old and he's in at that lower level and his lieutenant is 46, he's got to wait for that 46-year-old lieutenant to either resign and find another job or retire. That's a long time before you can get promoted to the next level. And so this throws another level of promotion basically in their contract. Chief, if you have anything to add, feel free. Otherwise, Vince, if you can just walk them through the percentages real quick, and that's all.
Yeah,
it
we
really
went
comes
over
down
this
to.
a little while back. So basically, the result of the negotiations is that we essentially have a new step plan, and based on that new step plan, all current employees will receive a 5% increase right off the bat once this gets approved, and that would be effective through September 30th. As of October 1st, they would still be operating under their current contract, so they would receive the same pay increases that were initially planned. So it's really that initial 5% bump that's intended to get them back up to a more competitive pay scale. And then we also have the new, the new driver position, and the lieutenant positions have also been adjusted to just get to a more competitive rate based on the different cities that we surveyed.
Basically, what this does, and you'll see this in my city manager's budget, is we're not last, we're not first. We're really shooting for that median average comparable rate based off our municipality comparables is all we're shooting for. The 50th percentile, if you will.
Actually, Chief, I have a question for you. Oh, yeah, this. Actually, looking at most departments their drivers are lieutenants or they're acting lieutenants or things like that, and so this is not uncommon, that position, the driver's position, being with that pay scale or being a step in the system.
No, it's not. You figure that you're entrusting $500,000 worth of fire apparatus riding down the road with 3 other lives in there to someone who hasn't met those qualifications yet. We have a set standard, but we've never paid them for those. So this just puts us in step with other departments, and this isn't anything that's uncommon.
Right, and I know there's a little bit of testing that goes along with that.
Absolutely.
And like you said, the responsibility of getting everybody there safely and for everybody they pass on the road. So just wanted to make sure that was kind of clear, because I know that looking at other stations, what they've done, so this isn't uncommon at all, creating that
Not
driver's
at all.
position.
Not at all.
And folks, I mean, we look at our Madeira Beach Fire Department, we've got great firefighters, and keeping them around is what we need to do, because I can't say enough for the lieutenants and the chief, the training that they do here. Once in a while, I'll go run stairs with them or do some training, and I'll tell you what, we have the best fire department here in Pinellas County, so we want to keep our firefighters, and this is a great way of assuring them a future to stay here. Chief, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I concur with everything you said. I just don't want that to get turned into we don't worry about the other employees
Oh,
as
no,
well.
no. Just
You know,
talk about fire
they're the only union we've got now, and so we handled them first. But again, in the city manager's budget, I think I've alluded to the fact that there are people or positions getting paid beneath 10% of their comparables. We're going to address those in this budget, and I think you've made that promise in the past that employees, when things are bad, we need you to cooperate with us, but when things are good, we'll cooperate with you. Well, we're in that position now, and so just so you're aware that you'll see the city employees as a whole are being addressed, not just the firefighters.
So this has been ratified by the union?
They're going to take their votes, I believe, early next week. It won't come before you until they ratify it.
We good? Have consensus? Mr. City Manager, Chief, Vince, thank you very much. All right, next discussion on sister city relationship with Bimini, Mr. City Manager.
I think you all know where I'm at on this one. I'm throwing up the white flag. I think the city of Madeira Beach has gone above and beyond to try to help out a community that may, at least at one point, needed some help. They were invited to the bone fishing tournament. We had accommodations. We had meals. We had everything planned. And the day before the tournament, we were told that they weren't showing up. Unless you want me to pursue, I'm fed up. I have no use for it any longer. So, what had promising expectations of a partnership is just, I think it's like a one-sided high school relationship or something like that. You know, it's a bad analogy, but it's exactly what it would have been. I think we would have been doing all the work, and there would have been one benefactor and one worker bee, and I'm through with it. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's done. If the commission's okay with that. Yep.
After spending almost 5 years with them, very smart.
Yeah. I think, you know, initially there was some promise there, but they would have had to work, and
It's a two-way street, and it's got to work both ways.
It's like I said, it's just like any other relationship, and it was only one-sided, and the level of frustration I've reached is just beyond what I can take on this one. So,
if I could just jump in here, if there was a resolution that created that sister city relationship, I think that it would be appropriate, if it's the direction of the commission, for me to prepare a resolution that basically repeals the prior resolution, if that's the direction. So, and I frankly can't remember if it was done by resolution or not, but
it was a resolution. Yeah. Amy and I are having trouble locating it. I don't know if it was the previous clerk or if we sent them home with it, but I thought the resolution had verbiage in it that said that they had to adopt it as well. That's basically what we've been waiting 2.5 years for them to do. So I'm sure you prepped it.
We actually voted for it on stage.
On stage, and then remember that night he was actually there, but he didn't feel like he had the authority to sign it, which immediately irritated me, and then that's what we've been working on for literally for 2 years. So Tom, your authority, if it required their signature, then I think it's just void and whatever, but if we want to just undo the whole thing, I would love to send them a resolution saying we're no longer interested, so that they get a hint. I mean, at a minimum, I want to send them a letter saying, thanks for playing, but we're out.
I think if there was a resolution, we could rescind it with another resolution.
Whatever you guys think.
Well, actually, Commission and Mr. City Manager, you said you spent time in the Bahamas. I spent about 10 years working down there, and it works at a different pace. So I don't know if maybe if we want to send a letter and sometimes the wheels in the
Absolutely.
island seem to move a little slow and maybe
2.5
not.
years worth?
Well,
Oh, wait, I think we should put Elaine
City
Poe on
manager,
an
it took us
airplane
10
and
years to build an airport down there.
let Elaine can get some movement out of them. That's fine.
I don't know, I watched them put a roof on for 3 months.
Yeah.
And it wasn't finished when I left.
Yeah, I mean, you remember you all sent me over there. I was supposed to meet with somebody at I think it was 11 or 12. I finally got in at 4:45, and I'm talking to the wrong guy. I mean, we're not going to get any cooperation out of it. We're not going to get any benefit out of it. They said that they would appropriate some dollars. They were going to come to this tournament and sign the resolution, and they were going to be there and make a presence and have a booth and, advertise Bimini, and we were going to cross-market. None of it's happening, and I'm done doing all the work. It's just never going to happen. And you're right, their clock is 3 days ago. I'll give you that, but I can't do it anymore.
Well, Tom, don't you think we resolution anyway, then prior resolution or agreement or contact or letter or note or whatever,
Yeah, if it was a resolution that was done, it wouldn't have required their signature. They may have had to done a reciprocal resolution, but
Well, the resolution had a spot for them to sign. Whether or
Okay.
not that's what solidified the resolution, probably not, because you all voted on it. So there's something that, it wasn't even this commission, it was the prior commission. The commission voted on something. Let's rescind it, put it in an envelope, send it to them and say thanks.
yeah, you're going to need to repeal it. Otherwise, the sister city connection will always be there until you rescind it. And so let's do it by repealing a resolution.
To rescind.
Should we send a jar of Vaseline?
Easy. Commission, what is your pleasure?
I think you got it.
All right. All right, Mr. Manager.
All right, thanks. We'll have all these signed up and ready for you guys at the next BOC meeting. So I believe the next meeting then is Monday for the city manager's budget. Feel free to, pardon? What?
Nothing.
Oh, feel free, again, that's going to be a very generic overview. Take it home, digest it. If you need to meet with me, if you need to meet with Vince or us collectively over the next couple of weeks. But spend some time with it, and then we'll start slating some public hearings and things of that sort. But so it's a relatively simple budget, especially now that Don Stock's been removed.
All right.
Monday at 2 o'clock, I believe, right?
2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. Last page.
All right. Seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 3:28.